Welcome back to Mystara, all you hoopy froods, as this week you've selected Mystara across the Outer Planes. Despite Mystara being largely self-contained during its own run, several characters made appearances in numerous other settings. In addition, the ban on outsiders coming to Mystara doesn't work in reverse. Characters with the right magic, artifacts, or just plain dumb luck are free to go traipsing across the planes. Then add in the 3 catch-all settings with Planescape, Spelljammer, and Ravenloft, which are meant to be accessed by all the various settings, and your characters aren't tied to this plane. Well, let's get plane hopping. I'm Mr. Welch, and we are exploring the multiverse. First off, I'm only going to talk briefly about the inner planes, because Mystara made it far too easy to visit the elemental planes in a variety of areas. This also includes the spirit world and the good kingdom, because they are effectively mirror planes like the ethereal plane, only much more customized. Traveling the inner planes are no different than other settings as described by the manual of the planes. You need to get the right spells and the items to survive on the planes of fire or earth and the rest of them, but everything else is the same, just like the City of Brass or the Great Dismal Delve. Right now, 5th edition has the inner planes thrown into the Great Elemental Chaos, but Mystara, in the few mention it has in the books previous, still used the Great Wheel cosmology. The Elemental Chaos only came around because of the Forgotten Realms spell plague, but this is Mystara, not Forgotten Realms. It's not always about you, Faerun. Like the inner planes, the outer planes in the form of the heavens and the hells are still the same. You can still reach them with spells like Gate or Planar Shift or any number of artifacts or magic items. Of course, that's where the players are going to get some serious culture shock because the concept of gods are foreign to Mystarans. Most of them have never even seen a devil or an angel. To say they might get a little bit cheeky towards the uppity celestial demanding they identify themselves, or even worse, eye roll a god listing their laundry list of titles would be an understatement. As much as immortals don't appreciate the gods, Mystarans would be under the impression the gods are just extraplanar creatures who haven't earned their rightful place like the immortals do. Tiamat might be a powerful dragon god, but she didn't earn her place by being the greatest dragon to ever live and then ascending to immortality by impressing the fellow immortals. While probably not the healthiest attitude to have in this situation, you can't help but think Mystarans might be a little snarky when meeting an actual god on the outer planes. Then you've got the outer planes, which are defined by the Mystaran books, which are like finite prime material planes. These are frequently mentioned in the books with the Wrath of the Immortals or the Immortals box set, as well as the Master and the Immortal level modules. Again, most of the time you're going to need magic to get there, but Mystaran outer planes are usually the stuff of fever dreams. Think planes populated by sentient musical notes, living aspects of time itself, and an entire plane devoted to Skokie, Illinois. I'm not making that last one up. There are a lot of Mystaran outer planes. One of the primary abilities immortals have over gods is the ability to create new planes and populate them. Most of the planes feature only a single planet, but some are massive in scope. Players will have to adapt to their new environments quickly or die, and some of these planes are so alien to life that the player's only real hope of survival is to get out as fast as possible. The biggest crossover potentials are the 3 catch-all settings, specifically Ravenloft, Planescape, and Spelljammer like I mentioned previously. These are meant to be open to all the settings, and Mystara and or its people has made appearances in each one. Ravenloft, or more specifically the demi-plane of Dread, cheats a bit because you can't actually get to it if you want to. It comes for you. The mists overtake the party, and then you find yourself inside of a living nightmare. If you're really naughty, then the mists put you in a personalized hell. The Dark Lord Meridoth is explicitly from Alphatia and is arguably the most powerful wizard on the plane. Remember, he doesn't like visitors, so don't try and talk about the old country with him. There's a homicidal Wereshark Dark Lord that was apparently a merry pirate from the Hollow World that was added by the supplement Nocturnal Sea, but that one isn't considered canon. It's considered a really well-written book, and a lot of people do consider it canon, but it's technically not. Again, don't expect a warm welcome. If you do find yourself trapped in the domain of dread, do your best to get out because the plane is trying to kill you. Spelljammer was the first true multiplanar setting, with flying ships going from the crystal spheres that held each setting and going everywhere in between. Mystara wasn't mentioned at first because it wasn't 2nd edition at first, but it was added later in a Dragon magazine. Mystara breaks several of Spelljammer's rules. First, Mystara's space is a void rather than filled with phlogiston, so the air bubble around most Spelljammers bleed out quickly, meaning the crew needs special gear or else they'll suffocate. In addition, Mystara's void is crippling cold, so again, special gear is needed to avoid freezing to death. If you're going to go the Spelljammer route, you need to make your ships able to fly in Mystaran space, which typically means a sealed and heated cabin, so your ships resemble more like an armored, steam-powered ship, such as a Civil War Monitor class, than an actual sailing ship. This brings us to Planescape, the easiest of the catch-all settings to actually get to. Planescape is only accessible by magical portals, something that magic-heavy Mystara can easily duplicate. Planescape has a couple of Mystarans found there that are mentioned in canon, including Rahondo, who is a plane hopper mentioned in the 2nd edition Karamikos book, and Pharaoh, a shadow elf that walked through a portal and suffered a fate worse than death when he was grabbed by one of the factions and literally split into 15 different individuals to infiltrate all the other factions at the same time. Pharaoh is highly symbolic of just how messed up Planescape is as a setting. Now, for players getting to Planescape, that allows them access to all the other planes, Inner, Outer, Mystaran, or even other worlds like Athos or Krynn. Yes, you have to deal with the Lady of Pain and all the insanity of the factions, but if you can learn where the portals are, it's also the best way for low and mid-level characters can go plane hopping. Sigil is a good tool they can use, and you can include as little or as much as possible in getting to their final destination. When it comes time to adventure in other settings like Greyhawk or Birthright, the main theme is probably going to be culture shock. A lot of things in Mystara are utterly alien to other settings, and Mystarans aren't going to have any idea what a Kinder or a Dragonborn is. Granted, have fun watching the Rakasta get offended by constantly being called a Tabaxi, or restraining the Thanaton as everybody thinks it's the elf's pet squirrel and petting him on the head. Some constants like the Radiance don't exist on other planes. Granted, that one's so rare that players wouldn't be expected to think it would work off the Mystara anyways. Because Mystara is a very high magic world, Mystarans would appear to be very much more powerful than their counterparts, largely because they would have a lot more magic on them. They would feel right at home in Eberron, but Birthright or Dragonlance, they would be packing a lot more than anyone else would. Now, certain things like the secret crafts of Glantry should work just fine, so if you're a powerful Dracologist right out of Ritterberg and that uppity Daggerdale wizard gives you some lip, feel free to turn into a dragon and flambe him and his big pointy hat. Once you're in another setting, this is the time for the role-playing opportunities to come out of the woodwork. Now you get to try and keep the Glantrian from dissecting the wild mage you come across to see why his magic doesn't work right. Any characters from Minrathad or Darrican are going to be looking at everything with dollar signs in their eyes, trying to figure out how to get it back home into the auction block. It has long been a maxim for a lot of DMs that the excuse, "I'm from another plane," is a really crappy way to try to order your character off the menu in a setting. That's the original special snowflake when you have to be more unique than the other characters. Remember, the insult is the word special, not the word snowflake. But if you're actually plane hopping, this is the one time that a background doesn't qualify as power gaming. It would make perfect sense for the party to bring back a Kinder, a Thrycreen, an Aasimar, or a Warforged back to Mystara, especially if they're breaking them out of a prison or saving them from some really bad situation. If you have to replace a character or you're adding a player, have fun with the fish out of water. Mystarans are going to have a hard time getting used to extraplanar travel because of the various differences between the settings. The gods versus the immortals is the immediate and obvious situation. The fact that many of our demi-humans don't have an equivalent on other planes would be another. There are no Strongheart or Lightfoot Hen. There's just Hen. Imagine a drow trying to figure out the mannerisms of a Belkades elf. Not quite sure how to handle turtles in other settings because they've only been in other settings officially as of a year ago. Let the players have as much fun as possible dealing with these culture classes because it's their time to shine. The tranquil halflings of the realms are going to have heart attacks watching a Hen Yalarum charge multiple greater demons, fully expecting victory because that's the last thing greater demons would expect. Extraplanar adventures can be hard to pull off because they are frequently nothing like you've run before. Mystara Extraplanar goes from absolute bizarre to rather mundane. With Wrath and the Immortals box set, it gives you methods to create new planes of existence, and it does have a lot of extraplanar hijinks in the Master set, though it really does have to be clarified. There is no sphere of entropy as a physical place. It's a school of thought. It's not the plane of Socratic method or Confucian thought. There's not a sphere of entropy as a physical place. Now, there are worlds dominated by the sphere of entropy, but they are no different from worlds dominated by the other four spheres. That bit of continuity has bugged me for years. That wraps up this week's Welcome to Mystara. I'll get the poll up for next week. I'm going to start taking down the bottom vote getter so it's not the same four over and over again plus a replacement. I've got a list of topics and I'll just put the lowest vote getter at the bottom to keep recycling the ideas. So remember to like and subscribe, and I'll put up my Twitter in case you want to like that because I occasionally put Mystara thoughts on there. And if you have a topic you want on the list, just put it in the comments and I'll put it on the list. So until next week, remember time is relative. Lunchtime doubly so.